emails, and that it was several pages back, but they could not find it later this afternoon. If you feel like taking a chance and want to spend some time looking through the Google search engine, again, the Google search is Sandy Hook United Way. If you can find that cached page dated December 11th, well, is it any wonder conspiracy theorists out there are concerned about whether this was a false flag? Now, again, I don't claim that to be the case. I really would hate to think that anybody in our government would move that far down the road. But just to kind of go along with how the media is pushing and trying to allay the fears of the masses, the New York Post actually ran an article by Stephen Carter entitled "Why the Push for Gun Control Stalled." And in this, he says that the support for stricter gun laws hasn't jumped as fast and as far in recent weeks as many liberals had hoped and expected. If you're wondering why, maybe the reason is the shakiness of the public's trust in the government itself. Bottom line is, the only possible explanation that this reporter can come up with for why there's still more people that support putting weapons in the hands of teachers than taking gun rights away from American citizens must be the fact that they just don't trust the people who would be doing the regulation. Well, evidently, you're onto something there. I don't know if that's the only reason. Maybe there's still just enough Americans out there that love and trust the Constitution of the United States. After all, the Founding Fathers understood it was important that American citizens be able and prepared to defend themselves should that become necessary. Well, that concludes our Conspiracy Corner for today. We'll move on to some more interesting and humorous and offbeat news of the day. Starting with the fact that the Boeing Corporation has successfully tested a new weapon system, referred to as CHAMP. A recent weapons flight test in the Utah desert may change the future of warfare forever after the missile successfully defeated electronic targets with little to no collateral damage. Boeing and the U.S. Air Force Research Laboratory directed Energy Detectorate out of Kirkland Air Force Base in New Mexico successfully tested the counter-electronics high-powered microwave advanced missile project. CHAMP for short. During the flight over the Utah test and testing range, CHAMP, which rendered electronic targets useless, is a non-kinetic alternative to traditional explosive weapons that use the energy of motion to defeat a target. During the test, the CHAMP missile navigated a pre-programmed flight plan and emitted bursts of high-powered energy, effectively knocking out the target's data and electronic subsystems. CHAMP allows for selective, high-frequency radio wave strikes against numerous targets during a single mission. And, quote, "This technology marks a new era in modern-day warfare." That was Keith Coleman, the CHAMP project manager for Boeing and Phantom Works. In the near future, this technology may be used to render an enemy's electronic data system useless even before the troops or aircraft arrive. To me, that's pretty cool, and it's akin to the concept of the electromagnetic pulse, only they're using directed microwave energy. Certainly would be useful in a lot of battlefield situations where you want to take out their command and control structure without worrying about taking out collateral damage. When you're dealing with people who like to hide behind human shields, it can be very effective. Also on the offbeat, there is a case found on Amazon.com where a customer complained that she could not use her food stamps. Considering that food stamp abuse and just EBT in general has, from certain state to state, cash benefits that are being used for purposes other than what this program was intended for. I just thought that was worth noting. Also worth noting, when she filed her complaint, which is still on Amazon.com as far as I know, I actually took a look at it earlier myself, at least a majority of comments back to her comment, a few of them were kind of rude. There's some questions now whether or not this was even legitimate. But a lot of the comments that she got in place were in regards to why Amazon.com is as high as they are, because of the business taking a hit and having to pay more for people that are taking money out of the economy. And just a lot of conservative responses to it. Some of them on the verge of being rude. Some of them went past that line. But still, conservative values showing up. And that's got to be worthwhile. Also in the offbeat, a fat acceptance group is actively condemning the Biggest Loser's decision to add kids to the show. The National Association to Advance Fat Acceptance calls the Biggest Loser's decision to include some young teenagers appalling. Season 14 of NBC's reality weight loss competition begins this upcoming Sunday night and will include 3 teenagers. 2 are 13-year-olds and one's a 16-year-old. The casting decision sparked controversy in some circles, with critics worrying that the experience will stigmatize the children involved. In a statement issued late Friday by the NAAFA, accused the show of trying to profit off the bullying and stigmatization of fat kids, and said that the lasting harm was done to children by focusing on body size and weight loss. Quote, I am concerned that The Biggest Loser promotes short-term weight loss and does long-term harm to the bodies, minds, and spirits of many of its contestants and viewers, precipitating eating disorders, weight gain, depression, and weight-based bullying. This was Barbara Altman-Bruno. She's a member of the advisory board and a clinical social worker. And she said that in a statement, along with that they are now involving teenagers, is appalling. Meanwhile, in response to that, a representative of the show released the following statement Saturday. Quote, the show itself is the best evidence that our intentions and approach. We encourage people to tune in to The Biggest Loser on January 6th to see that the kid participation on the show will follow an age-appropriate program that emphasizes getting healthy rather than numbers on a scale. As you'll see, the kids are handled with great care, support, and encouragement to help them live a longer and healthier lifestyle. Biggest Loser executive producer Lisa Hennessy has defended the casting decision as a necessary first step in starting a national dialogue about childhood obesity. Hennessy said that the show is working with childhood obesity experts to produce with sensitivity and has urged critics to reserve judgment until watching the first episode. She noted that the children are never weighed or are subjugated to grueling workouts or low-calorie diets like the adult contestants are. Instead, the trainers and the obesity experts help the kids to live a more active lifestyle and make healthier food choices. Meanwhile, back at the fort, the overall consensus is The Biggest Loser saying that we're trying to start a national conversation in regards to the silence that is literally killing our children. You know, I always get a little bit nervous whenever I hear anybody use the catchphrase that it's for the children. Usually it's time to run, or at least hide your wallet. Anyway, as ridiculous as that is, while we're still on TV topics and ridiculous people, Not a big fan, but I think it's still worth mentioning in case you are or have any questions about Joy Behar. At this point, as you noticed by now, if you're a regular listener of the show, we discussed just the other day how Al Jazeera has purchased Current TV from Al Gore. Last week, one of the big questions was, would the lineup of the existing programs stay in place, or would there be a lot of shakeups? Well, there's already been a few announcements that certain people are going to have their shows coming to an end. They'll be looking for employment elsewhere. Joy Behar herself, however, has not confirmed whether she would be appearing on the new Al Jazeera channel. Behar went on Jay Leno after the announcement, and she didn't seem to have a problem with Al Jazeera. This, of course, is a network that is known to be sympathetic to Al-Qaeda. But she did have a huge problem with the idea of working for Glenn Beck. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, Glenn Beck has left mainstream television to launch what's called GBTV, which is a full-on television network, but it's only available online. Well, about a year ago, Glenn Beck and the GBTV folks made a serious offer to purchase Current TV then. Now, the offer was nowhere near what Al Jazeera's ended up paying for it. So, can't blame Al for taking more money. Every good liberal knows that the evils of capitalism only apply to other people and never yourself. So, Al made a nice big chunk of money, but what was really worth mentioning here is the fact that when Leno asked if the Osama bin Laden would be her new boss, she joked, to me, it's like Al Gore, Al Jazeera, Al Pacino. It's all the same thing. But when she was asked about working for Glenn Beck, who did inquire about purchasing Current TV last year, Behar turned serious and said that would have been a nightmare. It's okay to work for somebody that's more than happy to promote Al-Qaeda, but someone who promotes traditional conservative values and who's hired a lot of liberal media types to work for theblaze.com, because those are still the good reporters, and there's a few of those voices on the GBTV. But they've morphed more towards a middle-of-the-road reporting. And even that is ultra-conservative when you're as far left as some of these folks. Just thought it was worth mentioning that Al Jazeera is okay. Glenn Beck would have been a nightmare. Having to sit down and watch a program starring Joy Behar, that is a nightmare. Looks like some union thugs are continuing to give their other union brothers and sisters a bad name. This story out of Philadelphia. In order to afford a new meeting house, a Quaker community group in the Philadelphia area chose to employ a non-union contractor. Well, now they're paying a higher price than they would have if they just went with the union. 4 days before Christmas, the Friends, that's part of the name of the group, by the way. It's the Chestnut Hill Friends. It's the name of the Quaker community that was trying to build their meeting house. The Friends' world was rocked by the sort of violence they've devoted their lives to stamping out. Vandals with a acetylene torch crept into the project's muddy construction site in the middle of the night. Working out of view of the meeting house's freshly cemented basement, they sliced off dozens of bolts, securing the bare steel columns, and then they set fire to the building crane. causing $500,000 in damage. The police detectives deemed the attack arson because of a series of confrontational visits from union officials days before the incident. I always thought that you were supposed to deem something arson because of arson investigation on the site, not just because somebody came along and threatened.